as a digital marketer, what you need to understand is one legislation with these companies is going to completely change the way that you're supposed to perceive or go about your activities, right? They change one policy for Facebook for advertising. Everybody who relies on Facebook advertising to create their value lost it. And I think that goes back to our original point with TikTok and all these other platforms is you should not hedge all your efforts into one single activity. You should diversify it across multiple platforms and make sure that you're always open to the option that that might disappear tomorrow.
Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Welcome to the Brew. Today we have actually a pretty interesting podcast because we're talking a lot about digital marketing in our realm, but we're going to talk about specifically applications that potentially might get banned and the companies that might acquire them. Potentially. There's a lot of potential stuff today, but we're going to get started with TikTok in general and both analyze them in the sense of like they do something correctly, but also critique the crap out of them on areas such as data privacy, which they completely fail upon.
Yeah, they do.
So actually, to get started, what I'm pretty interested in is hearing of the story of each of us the very first time we heard about TikTok when we actually got on it. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I thought it was a complete joke when TikTok came out. I thought it was irrelevant. I didn't find any value in it. I thought this is just gonna be a bunch of little kids using this, and this is a dumb platform. I was very wrong very quickly.
That's because we're old.
Exactly, we're really old now.
We're getting cynical.
We're past 20 years old.
Yeah, we're the old people on the porch swinging our fists at the young kids playing on the lawn.
Absolutely. But I think the main thing I kind of want to go into is once you actually got into the application, like the very first time, what your impressions of it was. Because the very first time I got into the application, I first thought, I'm like, there's a bunch of little kids, blah, blah, blah. And don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of little kids and it was all over the place. But then I really quickly, it started putting me into feeds of like really funny humor content that like was really addictive. And I just kept on going to the next video. And that was my experience. And that's why I was like, okay, TikTok, it has a lot of value and this could be pretty cool for digital marketing. We should get into it. But what was your guys' first kind of interactions with TikTok or what you perceived about it?
So, I mean, I back in the day, it used to be called Musical.ly, and all I knew about Musical.ly was Jacob Sartorius. And I decided to pull up one of his songs on YouTube, and I was just like, all right, I'm choosing not to roast him live right now. But so my impressions are not great. I was like, okay, this is just for kids, and I'm going to stay off of it because I'm not interested in doing karaoke with the other kids. A little
creepy, right?
Yeah, it is pretty creepy.
I mean, Musical.ly was a little creepy.
Yeah. But then it became TikTok, and then I was like, okay, that is the stupidest name I've ever heard for an app. Like, why are we calling it TikTok? Like, is this a timer app? Like, do I set it to wake me up at 8 a.m. every morning? But then Gary Vee kept on talking about it and talking about it and talking about it, and he's like, if you don't get on TikTok right now,
well, he was pushing
you're losing out.
He was pushing it when it was Musical.ly.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember I would watch his videos and I'd be like, dude, what the heck are you doing right now? Like, you're like,
dude, Gary, you're
getting put on a list right now, man. Like, this is not okay. So yeah, I never paid attention to it.
Yeah. So finally, I just checked it out because I mean, I've listened to his advice before, and it's been very good advice, and he's been right. Been wrong about a few things, but he's been right about a lot of things. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. Yeah, sure enough, scrolling through this app, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't make me log in. That's very interesting. And there's just like some annoying videos and lots of music. And then they started getting more interesting, like you were saying. And then I got into this thing of like, okay, I get on it, end up scrolling for like 30 minutes to an hour, delete it. Get onto it again later on for an hour or so, keep it on for a couple of days, delete it again later. Eventually it got to the point when I actually started doing my own research of TikTok, where kind of like you were saying, the feed started to become very, very tailored. I started learning stuff. I started learning about tech, digital marketing, stocks.
I'd be very careful learning about stocks on TikTok. So let's be real here.
I actually take all of my financial advice from TikTok.
I mean, to be fair, I did look up one or two of these guys' YouTube channels. I didn't subscribe, but they were educational and informative. So that's when I realized that there is so much potential for TikTok, and Gary Vee was actually right, because any kind of brand, any kind of company can get onto this app. And it's not just about dancing and making music and stuff. And although it is recommended because, as we'll talk about later, like the algorithms favor certain things, but I think before we all started learning about certain things, like my, I guess, third or fourth impression was that this is a great app.
How about for you?
I knew about it when it was Musical.ly with Gary Vee. Had I think less than zero interest when it was Musical.ly. Because I looked at it. I downloaded it when it was Musical.ly, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool because I have nieces too, so they'll tell me like, oh, this is what's happening. And I felt like an absolute weirdo, and I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I can't do it. So I deleted that, and then it turned into TikTok. Reinstalled it, and just like didn't care for it at first. When like the transition between like when it went from Musical.ly to TikTok, it was just like a name change.
Yep.
Like entirely, it was just a name change. It was still like it's the same thing, which good on them. I think they recognized that their audience was just children, and they needed to rebrand in order to actually bring other people into the fold.
Yeah.
Which I think the name is like whatever. It's like when you think of like Hulu, like what the hell is that? It's like at this point, tech names are just sounds. So when it got big, I remember Gary Vee kept pushing it, and I was like, finally, like, okay, like when he was like, oh, look at these people like putting out like it's not just kids dancing, and it's not just people doing this, like it's like people like showing off like entrepreneurial skills, showing off like these like very like tangible things.
Yep.
And that's when I looked into it again. And then, when Freelogic opened up their TikTok account, that's when I was like, okay, I'll put it on my phone. And then we'll talk about why it's no longer on my phone in a bit. But I think I fell into like the usual trap of like, you have this app for a while on your phone. You used it when you first downloaded it for like 5 minutes, 20 minutes. And then you went, it's kind of dumb. This isn't in my routine. And you close it. And then one day, you're bored out of your mind. You open it up at like 11 p.m., right when you get to bed. And you are, next thing you know, it's 1 a.m.
Yep.
And you've scrolled through hours of these like 6-second videos of people dancing.
Yep.
And like jokes, but then you learn things. You learn, oh, now I know how to make like an empanada. Like it's like now like these are the things that I know how to cook. I know certain things in like economics. Like I do follow the Planet Money TikTok because it's funny. Like the guy that they have running it is super funny, and he's like my kind of humor, and they talk about like economic theories and things like that, and I think that's amazing. Like the fact that that's something that people, at first you have the dancers, you have the people who are using it for a very like what TikTok wants, like very amusing, very like, oh, anyone can do this, like oh, look, it's trending, it's popular, do this dance, you can be on the Discover page or whatever their page is.
For your page.
The For You page, and then oh, you're getting a bunch of followers. The algorithm is set up in a way where it's so easy. It's so easy to like, and likes aren't tracked the way they are on IG. That there's so much anonymity behind following and liking that you just start blowing up. So like there's little things like that, but now. And I mean, we can get into it if you want, because I think we've all
I would say let's talk. I want to talk a couple positive things. Before
you want to talk the pros?
I'll before we completely annihilate them on data privacy concerns and things that freaked me out once I found them out like in 2 seconds. But I think the one interesting thing that I think a lot of people need to realize, and we've realized that like from this conversation, is one, don't assume a platform is just for one audience, because it can evolve and grow, which TikTok did, and if you're in there from the start, like Gary Vee always kind of puts out there, you don't have to put all your resource and time into it, but you should be involved with the platform early on, because it has a lot of potential. And the reason why TikTok, I think, did a really good job is because, one, they didn't have the way that all these other platforms do for their algorithms for the time. So like when you post you can post at 10 a.m., 3 p.m. It actually doesn't matter on TikTok, because they spread out how they put in front of audiences throughout the day. So they do it off of like a long-term kind of time frame, and then they show it to certain audiences and test out if it works based on the hashtags and like the audience groupings. Algorithm is smart, so that's a good part. And then like what we talked about, like it rewards good content, so it actually puts it in front of people. So if you make good content, people will see it. People can easily interact with it, comment it, and grow it. And then also it allows for people to have a unique lens and talk to an audience they might have not talked to before. So I think that also is like a lot of added value, especially for like us, like as digital marketers, if we want to provide tips on like SEO or these things or how to get a job. It's a unique platform, because in 1 minute we can provide a tip that a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old might have never considered, because they don't get that kind of information advice in school. However, obviously there's issues with censorships and data privacy, which we'll happily grill. But before we go into that, do you guys have any other positives to say before we completely talk about why they're getting banned and the terrible side of TikTok?
Yeah, so in addition to all those points, like they also have an extremely low barrier to entry. So like I was saying, like they don't make you sign in, they don't make you create an account. So every time I deleted the app and reinstalled it, even though I was not logged in, I was right in the app. And I think, so when I first tried out TikTok, they didn't even have that like initial onboarding screen where you select your like preferences and favorite types of subjects and content. They just threw me into it.
Yeah.
But that made me more curious because it was just like because I spend so much time trying to figure out like why people like this stuff, right? Yeah, the algorithm is super cool too. It's just like at any point somebody can go viral because I think one big factor that they take into account is like the view times. So like video can be like anywhere between I think 1 to 60 seconds long. If your video views like a large proportion of the video has been viewed, then that like puts the algorithm in its favor and it gets like spread across to more people. And the next thing you know, like your video's at like 1 million, 2 million views. And people have grown way faster on TikTok than they have on Instagram. Like people who have been on, there's like a photographer I follow. I followed him for like 2-3 years on Instagram. He's probably been around on Instagram for way longer than that. Probably has like 300 some thousand views. On TikTok, he already has 500,000. He started 2 months ago. Or maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
So,
it's good content.
Yeah, I think that's why I really started to like this app. Other than the fact that it's extremely addicting and like time sucking, and that's why I keep deleting the app. But I started to see it as like the future of social media, and like this is the direction everything is going to start heading.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the interesting part about TikTok, as far as like, I mean, for the most part, we're all content creators.
Yeah.
You know, in one way, shape, or form. It is interesting to me that like TikTok is this place where you can have someone push like I don't even want to imagine how many hours. Remember that kid that I remember, I forget his username, but he got like he did like the Marvel themed TikToks, and he got Disney actually like is in talks with them and stuff like that. Like I don't understand how long it takes to edit that. I don't know if he's just doing it in TikTok. I don't know what he's doing, but I can't imagine it's quick.
Nope.
But then you have people who there's no editing. It's just something that is just, you know, it's just, it is what it is.
It's just funny.
Exactly. It's just funny, and it takes no time to edit.
Yeah.
That can also blow up. So I think it's this like funny gray zone of like, either you don't try and it's just the story that leads, or you try really hard and it's the content that leads. And it's just like TikTok, I mean, for all of its faults, is this place where both of those things can exist in like harmony, which is something that I don't think any other platform does well. Like IG doesn't do it well. YouTube definitely doesn't do it well. Facebook might as well not even exist at this point to the audience that TikTok is going after. Twitter, I guess, but Twitter's so cynical nowadays that it doesn't really matter. But I mean, one of the biggest positives that I think that they came up with, and it might be in response to some government pushbacks, is their creator fund that they're doing. So I mean, they're putting $1 billion
and 200 million to just US creators.
200 million into just US creators to be able to create content. So they're getting to the stage that YouTube was in like, what was that? Had to have been like 2010 when they realized that ads are making them a lot of money, and they can get more ad money by bolstering small creators or medium-sized creators to build out teams and hire people and make really good content for them. Which is why, like, you know, you have like these like big, like, you think Smosh, from Philip DeFranco, Machinima to an extent. Machinima's gone now, but I mean, back then it was like the king.
Does Smosh still exist?
Smosh is still a thing.
Really?
Yeah, Smosh is still a thing.
Really?
I don't watch him anymore, but it is a thing.
Still a thing.
You know the food wars? Good times.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember one of my favorite channels back then when I was in high school was SourceFed, and that came about because of YouTube's push into like the smaller independent kind of creator, and TikTok doing that now is going to be massive for them. Now the repercussions of, you know, what's going to happen in 5 years, that's for 5 years. As long as it's run in an effective way, I think that this $200 million is going to go a really, really, really long way.
And think of how TikTok is hiring too. I mean, they purposely got Disney executives in front of Disney streaming. So like they're building the team around TikTok to enable the actual growth globally. But the big problem there, obviously, is the origins of the company, which is at the underlying problem of everything right now. So the thing is, like, without getting super political, it is still a Chinese-led company. It has direct ties into the CCP government.
It has to.
Exactly. And then on top of that, the servers currently, and that's been the biggest question, are all in China. they just recently did buy some Google servers, and they're trying to invest into other things. But the question really comes to is all data that is created on that app will go to China.
Flows through
It
mainland
flows,
China.
It flows through mainland China. So that was concern number one. So that's why it got banned from military bases. It got banned from like Amazon didn't want it, so anybody employees wise, so that there was no IP theft.
They retracted that.
They retracted it, but that was another thing. That's another political thing that I'm not going to get into.
Yeah.
But if you look at the issues and causes, like for privacy concerns, because of the fact that the data and like the filming and all these things can directly go to one governmental source, that's why the U.S. military correctly was just like, no, consumer-wise, feel free to use it, but anything that has to do with security purposes or anything like that is completely off this platform.
In defense of TikTok, I think that the military started doing that after the Snapchat fiasco that happened with them. So it was by no fault of TikTok. It just, at this point, the military does not allow location-based social media to exist on any personnel's phones.
Wait, what happened with Snapchat?
There was a military employee, whatever their I should know what we call military employees, but I think he was he was inland in a undisclosed military base somewhere in the world, and he had a Snapchat installed on his phone,
and his location was there.
Exactly.
Oh,
So his location was showing up somewhere on a map.
Yeah.
And people were like, why is he there? He works for the military. Oh, 2 and 2 together. That's a secret U.S. military base that, he was undercover, and he was doing all the stuff there. So after that, they just completely cut off anything that was a
GPS location.
Yeah, exactly. Location-based social medias.
Yep.
So that's, again, no fault to TikTok. That was just, Snapchat was the one that taught the U.S. that lesson.
Let's get into the fault of TikTok then. If like in that case, I agree. Definitely, they're looking at social media as a whole, and that's where those kind of banning came from. But two things that with TikTok that everybody should understand. One is because, once again, the servers are in China, there's censorship there. So, for example, with the whole situation with Uyghurs and all these things, because of that, they actually censored any kind of content that had to do with political issues and all these things. That's obviously a clear issue, because that's going against, you don't want a platform to get too political, and TikTok actually is very political. You have all these political people on there now. But that being said, when you start censoring based off things that have to do with that country that the servers aren't, that's question number one. But question number two is really at the data privacy. So going to your point when it comes to how easy it is to get onto the app and all these things, they did that, but with the default of letting security be flawed to allow for this ease of access, which really scares me.
Yeah.
So they actually created a system within their the application. So one, it's so easy to hack into almost anybody's account, because they actually took out an HTTPS layer to an HTTP, which is the same thing as a website. You can easily hack into it, add malware and all these things. That's number one for account profiles. But number two, they actually have access to your hardware, not just the software of your phone, the actual hardware.
Its entire kernel access to the phone.
Anything. They can see your CPU. They can see the apps downloaded on your phone. They can have access to your GPS, and they ping that every 30 seconds. So that's even more worse than what Snapchat is.
When you say ping, you mean like track it?
Yeah, every 30 seconds, ping where you at. Ping where you at. Ping where you at.
Okay.
And you have to default. You have to learn how to turn that off. You have to.
So I'll let you finish, but sorry, I'm not trying to be Kanye here, but what do you know what like Instagram and other apps do? Like how often they ping location?
It's a lot. It's a lot, but it's not every 30 seconds. But you're giving the permission. And you're giving the permission, and it's like in TikTok, it's by default like that, and it's hard to turn it off. So there's a thing behind that.
Okay.
Also, they have access to how much memory space you have on your phone, what all these things that you're using on your phone. They have anything that has to do with the hardware of your phone, they know. So, and on top of that, what scares me the most is because of that, they can track the Wi-Fi connection ports to your other Wi-Fi device in your house, which everybody does, because you automatically connect your Wi-Fi when you're on your phone. It means that they know every IP device that's tied into that, so they actually know the layout of your house. Those are things that scare the crap out of me. One application can do all of this? Yes, they can. And that was because one developer literally went through and backtracked their entire code to find these security.
Reverse engineered it.
He reverse engineered the whole thing. Obviously, let me put a little bit like a grain of salt there. Obviously, he could be wrong. He could be wrong in some of these areas. He could.
Yes, he was just looking at the code that was available to him to reverse engineer it.
Exactly. So he could be wrong, and they could have patched some of these things. But the fact that he still even found those already scares me, because that shows me that they weren't taking the security side seriously, which is the whole issue in data privacy, which is people like convenience over security, which people need to be a little bit more educated on, because they tend to always alleviate the two. And it shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to, take out your security just to have more convenience, but that tends to happen. But that's only like obviously that's one part. Now you can say some of your own issues with TikTok or whatever else you want to bring up, but that's my biggest thing is when it comes to the actual development of it.
My biggest thing is I think we share the same things, man. It's terrifying. Like I said, like it's really easy to throw out like I remember I was talking to my wife yesterday, and she was just like, so what's the big deal? Like why is like TikTok this like very like scary thing? And I was like, and I asked her like, do you like, because I've said it a few times to her, like, oh, it has kernel access to your phone, but I in my mind. I am just like, she knows what that is, but I was like, I explained to her, I was like, do you know what kernel access is to your phone? And she was just like, to her CPU, excuse me, and she was like, no, I have no idea what that is. And I was like, okay, so every 1 and 0 that makes your phone, we're talking everything, literally everything. TikTok has access to that in some way, shape, or form. Networks, I think, are the scariest thing, just because nowadays, especially with IoT, Internet of Things, everything is connected to the internet. So if you have this like basically virus on your phone that leaches into your router, that then leaches into everything else, you go from it being like, oh, TikTok knows my location at all times. Sure, blah blah blah. Google knows my location all the time. You can justify however you want. But then when it gets to the point where you have like home security, you have webcams, you have they can tell how many bedrooms you have. Like I have a smart vacuum in my house. If they really wanted to, because I had TikTok installed at one point.
They can vacuum your house?
No, they hopefully want them to vacuum my house, dude. They could see how many bedrooms I have, what's my square footage of my home. If I have a Wi-Fi baby monitor, they see that I have a child. They like there's so many weird, creepy, like sprawling issues with that.
Complementary data sets is what scares me.
Exactly.
Not a single source.
Yeah.
You have a single source of data, you can't do much.
Yeah.
But when you have complementary data sets, you can control, like you can actually understand people's lifestyle and what they do, which is what we'll talk about a little later with Facebook and Google. That's what scares me about them. I don't really care about one side of data.
I'd be giving myself up to Google. We've had this conversation.
Oh yeah. We'll talk about why I'm okay with that, but like I'm also going to talk about why it's scary. But Nikhil, do you have any complaints on your end when it comes to TikTok?
I mean, I think you guys pretty much nailed like the most significant stuff. So what I did was I went on Google, I typed in why TikTok is bad, and the first hit I got was from a website called CBC News Kids. Do any of you guys know what CBC stands for?
Canadian Broadcasting Service,
okay.
something like that. It's the ABC for Canada.
Yeah.
CBC News Kids, or Kids News, and the title is 5 not so great things about TikTok. Number 1, dangerous challenges. So there's a burnt outlet here with a penny, so it's harmful.
Like actual challenges, like
yeah, because that's a big thing. Political censorship.
Yep.
Huge. Blocked content.
Yep.
Security concerns.
How's the number 4?
It's for kids. They don't know what security is.
That's fine. But
except for number 5, stranger danger.
I guess, yeah. Stranger danger is the thing.
Man, remember these kids websites where they just had really, really simple like.
Look at that UI. I actually really like it.
It was like PBS Kids, yeah.
Yeah.
Reminding me actually, somebody who was supposed to start an internship at Deloitte. She, maybe I shouldn't be talking too much about this, but yeah, she had her internship retracted because of some political stuff that she was talking about. And while what she said in one of her TikToks, which went viral, while it was an analogy, the way she carried it out was very violent. And obviously Deloitte has a social media policy, and obviously that the way it was perceived, because even the first time I saw it, I was like, oh shit. You know, that was, I think, grounds enough for her to not get that internship, because it came off in a wrong way. Plus, she pretty much pissed off the entire conservative party and all of its supporters and stuff, and that's not something that a large company wants to do.
They don't want to deal with that. They don't want politics to run. That's why a lot of companies try to be anti. I mean, it's changed quite a bit, but like, yeah, they want to be apolitical. I understand it to a certain extent. Sometimes you have to be activist, but I mean, so yeah, all those points, like, TikTok does still have a lot of flaws, and also it creates these echo chambers, and that's the one thing that none of these talk about. So for example, if you are like a conservative or liberal, either side, and it's very bipolarized now with the current movements. If you're on TikTok, you're gonna see a bunch of content that reconfirms your own political points, very, very aggressively, and it creates these bubble effects. All social media platforms do that. I'm not even gonna blame TikTok, but the fact that TikTok's algorithm directly builds their for you page based off that content, that's what scares me, because now it's putting people into this political realm, and especially if you're a young kid, like let's say 14 to 16 year olds, that's building up your political influence at a young age, and it might be a lot of misinformation. So misinformation, censorship, all these problems. So TikTok has a lot of issues. But the one thing I kind of want to bring up before we start talking about the potential of Microsoft kind of coming in here and being the savior and acquiring TikTok so that they don't get banned in the United States.
I think savior is a very nice thing to say.
Very, very nice thing to say. But I think the one important thing that people need to understand is TikTok, one side of why they are potentially getting banned in the United States is the data privacy. But the other side, it goes into economics. And you have to actually look at economics whenever you look at policy. Because policy usually is driven by some kind of, economic power that makes decisions. The reality is TikTok, only the users who are getting paid out of TikTok are paying tax in the United States. The company itself is not. Because of that, it'd be more strategic for the United States to have a competitive entity such as Facebook or Google have an app similar to TikTok to make and actually pay taxes in the United States and create wealth for the United States, especially the powerful. There's 120 million users, 150 million US users. There's a lot, and all these people are using it, but then the taxes are not getting paid into the United States. So there's some discrepancy there. However, that goes into my argument when it comes like holistic capitalism, because you're supposed to allow for free markets, whether it be international or not. And it gets very complicated, but we're not going into politics here. But I think the interesting thing is Microsoft is quote unquote wanting to save TikTok by acquiring them. And I think that is probably the smartest move that Microsoft has thought about in the longest time, because of the fact that that's the one area that they currently don't have platforms in, social media and advertising.
I mean, they had a platform, but
they
and we can you want me to talk about it now?
Well, before we talk about that, but let's actually put into perspective so people understand it. Microsoft is Fortune 1.
Yeah.
It is the biggest company in the United States.
Yeah, it's true.
So them acquiring that allows them for a completely separate business unit that they don't have right now, which will increase their overall wealth, which I think is the smartest move because of how fast Facebook grew, obviously, and Amazon grew, and all these companies to get into that realm. Because Amazon has their own advertising, Facebook has their own advertising, Microsoft does not. So before in that, I'm very interested to hear about some platform that I never knew about from Microsoft.
So I'm curious how I want to tackle this because I could just give you the very quick and dirty about Mixer, which is what.
So what is Mixer?
I want to do this the same way that I did with Andres. What do you think Mixer is?
If I heard Mixer for the first time,
Microsoft's Mixer,
I would think it's literally audio engineering technology that allows you to mix and master music.
Okay. Nikhil?
I mean, when you first told me about Mixer, for some reason I thought it was like MIXR because I feel like I've seen something like that before.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure what it is, and I honestly couldn't figure out what it would be. Like, is this another social media app? Is this mixing other types of media?
Yeah.
I have no clue.
All right, so Mixer was Microsoft's competitor to Twitch, which is what we're streaming on now, and we're not streaming on Mixer because Mixer is gone. Mixer, okay, so I'm sure you heard about this. Biggest streamer in the world at that point was Ninja.
Yeah.
Microsoft paid, I don't even know how much. It was in I think the hundreds of millions to get him exclusively to only stream on Mixer. He was previously on Twitch.
Yeah.
To get him to exclusively stream on Mixer because as they rolled it out, so when Mixer went live, so did Ninja's time on Mixer. They paid him a buttload of money. Same thing with like Shroud and some other creators. They paid them a lot of money for exclusivity rights to only stream on their platforms.
Yeah.
And it was a decent platform. I remember I watched it a few times just to see what the hubbub was about. But they didn't put anything behind it. Like they never gained traction in the people. All they did is they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to get Ninja and to get all these big name people to come over to be a part of Mixer, to hopefully use their social media platforms to get more people on Mixer. But what ended up happening was the streamers just lost the audience because Twitch is such a it's such a volatile platform for streamers. If you're not consistent, if you're not doing something every day, more likely than not, people are gonna find someone else that is doing that thing that you're doing.
Yep.
And I know that even like subscribing and donations and all these things that people do, that's the way it works.
Yep.
Microsoft never got any traction. They never invested in the community. Rather, they invested into the people that they brought in.
Big mistake.
Because of that, I mean, Nick, do you know how long Mixer was around? It was like 2 years, right?
2 years.
Probably. Yeah.
2 years?
Because it was like mid Fortnite, so it was still kind of big.
Yeah. Fork Knife was big.
Yeah.
Fork knife.
I think he announced it at like E3 like a year or two.
Yeah, because he did like a draft conference for him. He was like, oh yeah, I made my decision.
Yeah.
I'm switching to Mixer.
Oh man.
I remember I was like,
This actually rings so many bells now. This is
So
bothering
this
me.
was only 2 years ago.
This was 2 years ago when he went on there. So he made
So Amazon had acquired Twitch by this point too. just for
Oh yeah.
context.
Yes.
Okay.
Amazon, I think, acquired Twitch in like 2016 or something like that.
It's been
Yeah.
4 years already.
It's been a while. Maybe even more than that. So yeah, Mixer was like this huge flop, and the way that they lost like hundreds of millions of dollars in that deal. But the thing that I think this is very like tangential, but the thing that sucks the most is that when they closed down shop, when Mixer said no more, we're not gonna Mixer's gone. They didn't do it in a I think in the best way for the community. Obviously I think they took the rip the band-aid off as quickly as possible approach, where they just put out a tweet that said, hey, Mixer's gone, we're closing the servers. I think it was like July 20th or something like that when they said like no more servers are gonna go down, website's gone, you can't stream on there anymore. We're partnering with Facebook Gaming, so if you have an audience on Mixer, it's all gonna get transitioned into Facebook Gaming, and maybe Facebook will honor your monthly ad revenue that you had on Mixer over on Facebook Gaming. Maybe this is all like maybes. I think obviously there's no good way to say that your platform is gone.
Yeah.
But I think there's a better way to go about it than just like tweeting it out and
Absolutely.
kind of going about it that way. But yeah, Mixer was Microsoft's foray into this like social streaming kind of platform, ad revenue generating thing, because that's the business model. Is subscriptions obviously are a thing, but more likely than not, it's ad revenue that's kind of coming through it. So my big fear with hearing that Microsoft is going to get TikTok is they obviously have no idea how to manage social. Like, they don't know what they're doing. So unless they can manage to buy TikTok and have it not be Microsoft's TikTok and keep it as TikTok and let it do its own thing entirely, the way that Google does their acquisitions, which I think that, I mean, say what you want about Google, but the way they acquire companies is, I think,
strategic.
the way that you should acquire companies, is where you acquire them, but you give them an office if they want it, and if they don't, cool, it's all fine. Keep doing what you're doing. It's obviously working. It's very rare that you'll see Google step in and say, actually, stop doing what you're doing because we're gonna do it better.
Yeah, the only time they stopped is they wanted to completely stop. They're not gonna step in and try to manage them themselves. It'll be like cut off.
Exactly. So my big fear with Microsoft taking it over, if you want to call it like save them, is them
killing them.
exactly is them getting it, managing it incorrectly, it lasting 2 more years, and now them putting out a tweet or a TikTok that says, hey, it's shutting down in a month. If you have an audience here, sucks to suck. See you on Facebook stories.
See you on Thriller.
Yeah, see you on Thriller or something like that, whatever they partner with. Because that, I think, is kind of that's what I would see them doing. And I think that big TikTokers also see that happening, which is why if Microsoft purchases them, or if they do get acquired by another US based company, you'll see a lot of them go the way that Vine stars went when Vine went down. They're just gonna go to YouTube.
Yeah.
They're just gonna go to YouTube and IG. That's it.
But so, again, for more context, since again I'm not too familiar with it or that entire industry for that matter, but so Mixer was grown from the ground up in Microsoft, right?
Mixer. What was it? Beam, something like that.
Casey
Anyone know?
Neistat's company.
Mixer started in 2016 with Beam,
Yeah.
and they got Ninja last year, and he made $20 to $30 million for the switch over
You made $30 million just to kick it with
for a year.
So So 30 mil for 1 year, which is ridiculous.
I'm mad at my
So-
mom for stopping making games.
So Beam, no, I don't think it was Casey Neistat's Beam. I think it was a different spelling of Beam. It might have been BEE.
How was it
M.
spelled?
It was BEAM. I just saw B.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I
Was
don't
it
think-
Casey Neistat's Beam?
No.
No, it wasn't, right?
It was another one.
It was a different one.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Casey Neistat's Beam was Beam Social.
Yep.
Does BEAM, does that still exist?
No,
No, I think-
CNN killed
Okay,
it.
I
so
think Mixer was
Okay.
I think being evolved into Mixer.
Yeah. So they acquired
so
Beam.
CNN acquired both beams?
No. Micro-
CNN acquired BEME from Casey
Casey
Neistat.
Neistat killed
Okay,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this beam is a whole separate beam.
Okay.
So there's
A lot of beams.
Yeah, a lot of beams here. So streaming beam existed. Microsoft said, "Yep, we're gonna kill that." Purchased it.
Okay.
Changed it over to Mixer, which I don't know, like why.
It's a terrible name.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I was starting to think about like audio engineering, mixing and mastering. It's like Mixer. Like
Yeah.
I just don't get. I just don't
Mixing
get why
content
change
or
the
video.
name.
Right.
That's just like I feel like Microsoft being
Yeah.
like it's ours now.
So
Um,
the point I was going to
yeah.
make was, and I don't know if this changes at all because I didn't realize that they were acquired, but technically the original company's dead now. So point I was going to make is that like TikTok already has this entire team of like people
Yes.
who know what the hell they're doing, right? And again, Kevin Mayer, that's his name, right? The CEO of TikTok just came from Disney, helped Disney grow like crazy. He was like the head of partnerships or something. He's key component to Disney Plus.
Was he the dude who like when Bob Iger went down, like they were like he's gonna be the next dude?
He was. They were considering him. I don't
he
know
was
what
in line,
happened.
but I don't think he was like the next choice.
Oh, okay. Because I remember there was like list of like 2 or 3 people, and for some reason they gave it to like the number 4 guy who was like the director of parks or something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't really know the details of that, but yeah, the point I was gonna make is that like, I mean, if like you were saying, if they keep TikTok as its own thing, TikTok US as its own thing,
Yeah.
and
Just bankrolling it.
don't like lay off too many people or anyone for that matter, and just keep the team the way it is, but then add some Microsoft influence, create some synergies between the company and stuff, then I feel like it has more potential than if they kind of just like make it completely their own thing and like replace the teams
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
I remember we were chatting about it. Was it yesterday? And I brought up the idea of like, you have one of the US's. I'm gonna try not to get political here, but it's facts are facts. One of the US's biggest gripes against US companies going into China is that they have to partner with a Chinese company in order to exist within
Yep.
China and keep their name. That's a rule for anybody with China. That's why even the Germans when they bring their cars over, they have to partner with Chinese companies in order to actually sell them there.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why Tencent is so huge is that it has been leveraged as like the technical partner for any like internet-based company that comes from the US or anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit funny that that's kind of sort of in a roundabout way what's happening here, where the US doesn't want TikTok to exist because it's this like because of tax reasons and like the political reasons as well, but it's fine if TikTok exists if it was acquired by a US company.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where the hypocrisy comes in because like let's look like.
Oh, you want to talk about hypocrisy? Amazon doesn't pay any taxes.
Well, that's what I was about to say. It's like if you really look at like break down the hypocrisy of like these platforms and like the way that they operate is, if you start talking about data privacy, let's start analyzing Facebook and Google because that's already scary. If you start analyzing tax breaks, start analyzing like there's U.S. companies that are already breaking the rules that TikTok is quote unquote breaking.
Yeah.
So there becomes a lot of hypocrisy in it.
Well,
and
the difference is they started in a Palo Alto garage, and TikTok started, somewhere in China.
exactly.
That's the only difference.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, I would still trust data more in a U.S.-based firm than I would trust with the Chinese government. That being said, but if you just look at just the objective lens of things, like you can't just put 1-to-1 because U.S. companies are already breaking the rules that TikTok is consistently breaking. So it gets very mucky and like all over the place. But I think we've been bashing a lot on TikTok. So I think the one thing that this kind of transforms into, and I think this would be a good conversation to just talk about data privacy as a whole, because TikTok obviously opened like everybody. Well, hopefully people are more aware of like what TikTok's data privacy issues are. I don't think a lot of actually people are.
Well, I think again, we're the old people swinging our fists, and I think to like us, yes, I think so. I hope so. But like to the Zoomers, the Gen Z, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I hope so, but I don't think so. My nieces are still like, they were like furious. I remember I was texting them, and I said, "How do you feel about TikTok going away?" And they were just like, they're mad, like tweeting a storm about it, you know?
Yeah, I feel like we're like right almost at the cusp of between Gen Z and millennial, right? Like I think the cutoff is like 96, 95.
Like
96.
we played with like Lincoln Logs and like Legos for the first like 7 to 9 years of our lives, as opposed to nowadays you're handed a tablet.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
As
like,
a baby.
I didn't have a phone until I had a phone early on.
Middle school.
Like
Middle school's when I got my first phone.
Yeah, actually no. I think it was middle school. Yeah, early on in middle school. Now,
And it was a flip phone.
yeah.
I didn't have the
Well, no, I had
internet.
the Nokia bar phone. I could have hit that with a baseball
Nice.
bat. It wouldn't break. I literally tried a bunch of ways
Oh,
to break
yeah.
it. Never broke.
Nuh-uh.
That thing is OG.
I think it's
but-
the cockroaches and the Nokia phones are gonna be the
things
last ones left. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Talking about our first phones, I had like the Samsung Rant. I don't know if anyone knows.
The
what that
rant.
is. Yeah, it was I guess kind of like the Sidekick where you just slide it up, down, that kind of thing. It had like a horizontal keyboard. Thought it was the coolest thing.
Dude, that's a little.
Dude,
that's
that's
a little
pretty
bougie.
badass.
I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie.
that's
That's
pretty
pretty
This
bougie.
is like, I got it at the last day of 6th grade or something. It was like a graduation present, my
Nice.
first phone. Anyway, yeah, so I was gonna say that like, I feel like I'm very in the middle of if I care about data privacy. I care.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm with
but
you 100%.
It's like, it's so normal.
If you want to start going into it, by the end of this podcast, I don't think you're gonna be in
No.
that middle ground anymore.
That's
I-
fine.
I-
I need
I've-
to be educated here, but
the thing is, I have educated myself on data privacy and how terrifying it is, and I've accepted this like not even blissful ignorance because I know what's happening.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
like I don't know. It's more like me just going like, if I cannot see it, it's not happening. Like,
that's kind of
like,
the thing, right? It's so normal.
Yeah, but I think people should at least be aware of what is actually
Yeah.
happening with it, because the issue is people become so complacent with like the data privacy, and
Yeah.
like same thing as you is like I've gotten to the point I'm like, you know what, I know what they're doing. I'm cool with it because it does add some benefits to me,
Yeah.
like better ads, and I can find these things, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But what really scares me is going back to the concept of complementary data sets, because with complementary data sets, by having multiple touch points and understanding how to analyze you, they know you, they know your behaviors. So to put into perspective, have you seen the movie Great Hack
No, I need
about the 2016 election?
to. I need to watch it.
Yes.
Cambridge
Analytica.
Analytica is the scariest thing ever, because I learned the same stuff at Esri when it comes to using GIS, but if you're really good with data and you get enough data points on person, and what Cambridge Analytica, I think they have like 16 data points per person, you can predict behaviors.
Yeah.
And you can also change behaviors. So you can weaponize data to cause an action.
Okay.
It creates.
All right, you got me. You got me.
It takes the what Cambridge Analytica showed with big data sets and the power of big data. I think is like everyone that's in the marketing realm knows and understands the power of the lookalike audiences. I think that what Cambridge Analytica created, I don't know if there's a term for it, but I would recommend.
Psychographics.
Well, but beyond psychographics, but like if there is a lookalike audience that exists, then I think what Cambridge Analytica showed is like there's like this like mirror audience that can exist as well, where if I like people hate the idea of like buckets and segregating people based on like demographics and based on like infographics and psychographics. But at the end of the day, if you can put people into these like psychographical buckets, everything you can predict. And that's what Cambridge Analytica did.
Yep.
They didn't care who they were selling ads to, who they were selling data sets to. They were just selling data sets. Whoever was the highest bidder for the data set, they'd sell it to them. Which is why they were massively
Oh, they made
rich.
so much money in minimal amount of time.
2015, 2016, they made just crazy amounts of money.
But the crazy part is the way that they were able to access that data was by providing a survey on Facebook, but then they had a loophole to get into Facebook servers and actually pull more data
Oh,
than
the
they were
third
able
parties?
to get. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Facebook still to this day has not taken ownership for that. They fixed the issue. Like
Yeah.
they fixed it. They had to, because that was
Oh
a
yeah,
huge
because
problem.
they said those were just bad actors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was a very scary thing, and that's why like for me it's like I'm very conscious of data privacy, but at the same time, you're always going to give up your convenience for data privacy. And there's,
Yeah.
I could talk about data privacy, and anybody watching this can get all pissed off about like, oh, they can do this, and this. Well, the reality is you're not going to change. If you really take it seriously, data privacy, go back to a flip phone and don't use the web at all, because at the end of the day, everything's getting tracked. But the reality is that because Facebook, you log into multiple other applications with Facebook as well. That means that they have other complementary data sets. They know your date of birth. They know the pages you like. They know your interactions and engagements. They know how you're talking. They take syntax. Now with devices in your home like Google Home, Amazon Alexa, and stuff like this, they're also able to take...
Oh, the Pixel that they tried. Oh, was it Pixel? Portal.
Yeah.
Facebook is a whole nother bag of worms. But
Speaking
the
of
Portal,
bombs.
yeah. Oh, come on. They have it usually for like, was it like 40% off during the
Yeah.
holidays, right? Something like that.
Really?
Yeah, it was really bad. I almost bought one because I was like, well, I mean, I would like to like video chat with my parents if I needed to.
And have the camera follow you around and stuff, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Like
Yeah, track.
Not-
I just put a
not
piece of tape
invasive.
over. That's fine.
But it's the same thing with like Google because they have location. So like obviously you want to have your GPS on because it makes their GPS system better. So they want
Yeah.
data tracking, but then also they can see what stores you go into, your purchase history. They can. It's really scary what they know about you. That's the big arching thing with data privacy. That being said, as a caveat, you're still fine with it because at the end of the day, it provides you with convenience. But I think where data privacy really is going to go towards is that you as a user will own your data and you're going to be able to sell it to these companies.
Yeah.
So they put the power back into you because that's how it should be. They're making billions off of your actions and your activities, your interests. I individually am okay with them tracking me, but I want to get paid for that because that data they're using for activities. So if they want to take data privacy or anybody wants to take data privacy seriously, and I know there's solutions that they're working on this with blockchain systems, is put the power back into the hands of the user, have them control the data and them being able to choose, for example, location data, sure, my health data, sure, make my life better in these areas,
Yeah.
but you don't need my data points on everything. They have overwhelming amount of data on us.
Yeah.
And like, if we could get paid for it, that'd be great because they're making millions and millions.
They're making
millions
billions.
and billions and trillions
Yeah, a
of
lot.
dollars off of our data. So it's
You
like,
wonder
I mean,
why Microsoft is the company that it is. That data is the key there.
and Facebook and all of them.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing with Microsoft though is they actually are better on component sales than anything else, and same with Apple. They're the two companies that like have a little bit less data capture, but Facebook and Google, that's an entire business model.
Well, like we talked about it before, but the cloud that they Azure, what
Oh, yeah.
they have is like that's their like AWS is the reason why Microsoft is a $1 trillion company. Azure is the reason why Microsoft is a $1 trillion company. Like partially, like at this point, like it's you have all these like big datas. The reason why IBM has stayed consistent is because they put a lot of resources into Watson.
Yep.
Like they have these like, and Google has, I don't know what they call their supercomputer. But everybody has a supercomputer at some point, except for Apple. They're just component and software.
Yeah. But yeah, like the reality is like you still will always give up. Like if I get to log, like I always have the choice, right? Logging with Facebook. Of course I'm gonna click login with Facebook.
True.
I'm gonna make a password and all these things. But then at the same time, now Facebook has the access point in, and they can argue that they're not capturing that data, but that's complete crap.
So one thing that I do love, and I know I'm the only one of us, of the three of us that's all like Apple fanboy. But one thing I do love is that they have like sign in with Apple, and when you choose that as an option, because again, Apple isn't a data company. They're a hardware and software company. So like they don't care what information they collect to an extent, obviously. But like they'll make it so that it gives me an option. Like I put sign in with Apple and it gives me the option of, do I want to give this company my email address, or do I want to give them this like encrypted address that directs them to like, that gives them a unique ID for me, but doesn't directly give them my email address.
Yeah.
Like that's always an option. And I always click that because why the hell not? Like I don't want them to have my email address, and then they could track that in a million different ways,
Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing I do have respect for Apple is that they're the only company that takes data privacy pretty seriously. So that's also why if you ever use like Apple Maps, it's garbage. And the reasoning for that is because they're not using location-based services to track and optimize their maps versus Google does.
It actually makes a lot of sense now.
Yes.
Wow.
So that
You just made me respect Apple Maps a little bit. I
Yeah,
can't believe you just did that.
yeah, okay. So also
that's a stretch.
also defending Apple Maps, it has gotten compared to what it was when it first came out, it's gotten substantially better.
Yeah.
I will say that Apple Maps infographics and 3D visualizations are miles ahead of Google's.
Yeah.
Google's still better for directions, but aesthetically speaking, Apple is just tearing Google a new one.
Yeah, but they got a lot of work to do to catch up on the because without data capture, it's very hard to do location-based like GPS and these services. So they're gonna have to figure that. Yeah. So I mean, realistically, what I think would be a smart move by Apple is buying the data off of Google and then leveraging into it. But like at the same time, that's not gonna happen because there's no way Google is gonna be like, oh yeah, sure, here you goes. He's gonna make your maps more strategic and smarter than ours. That's not gonna happen either. So we'll see. But going off of data privacy, all these companies we talked about, Google, Apple, Facebook, even Amazon.
Fang.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Fang.
Bang. They were recently in the antitrust hearing, and I think that hearing is very, very important because it's talking about how the digital landscape is creating monopolies. Obviously, I was pretty disappointed with that hearing because they weren't really critiquing these companies like based off like knowledge of how tech companies work.
I also want to give a huge shout out to all of the countless hours that the lawyers of each of these companies put into training the CEOs, because my goodness, they were rehearsed. Like every question that they were asked, if it was anything negative or anything that they legitimately didn't have like a save face answer to, just the spin, the way they could turn it around.
We'd be more than happy to work with your office to find a solution for this legislation. We would be happy to work to build a legislation for this area.
Yeah.
We don't
pride ourselves on how much we've already worked with the legislation. Yeah.
Everything down to the background too. Even the background was so staged.
Everything was. And at the end of the day,
I will say though, if we were picking the best backgrounds, Tim Cook had, in my opinion, the best background.
I don't.
It was just like gray in the back, and it was like all monotone,
overall,
white and gray. It was
Apple
nice.
did a good job with the hearing. They're the only company that was actually somewhat answering the questions because they actually could.
Yeah, because they have not much time.
But didn't they also get grilled the least?
Amazon actually got grilled the least because of the fact that it's such a big employer. It's because of political stuff I'm gonna get into. But like the main thing with Apple, they were just for everybody's context of why these companies were getting grilled. Apple is getting grilled because of their app place market, because it's technically a monopoly. If you have an iPhone, which millions of users, you can only choose to buy your apps off of
their store,
Apple Store. But the issue with that is that App Store takes 35% cut.
Isn't it 30?
30% cut, my bad.
They could easily go up though.
They could, but 30% cut is a lot. That being said, I think Tim Cook argued it pretty well, which is at the end of the day, 30% cut facilitates for the community and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, isn't it like 16% of apps get charged 30%?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was conversation about some deals, and it gets very complicated very, very quickly, but that was the argument for Apple. Then you got Facebook, obviously the biggest issue when it comes to data privacy and their acquisitions of Instagram and all these other social, to create a monopoly in social media. Fair arguments, and I think Mark Zuckerberg completely got destroyed on a couple of them, and he couldn't even answer them. And then you got Google, which is obviously dominating the search query system, search engine. But at the same time, I think the arguments that people were having towards Google is just dumb, because they were not like, you can't just build a bunch of search engines. People aren't going to go to like 10 different websites to do search engines. You're going to go to one. So that was dumb. Yeah. And then Amazon overall for acquisitions and the dominance and how they're destroying the marketplace for online retail. I think Amazon by far got off too easily. They should have got grilled way more.
I think it's partially because, and dude, I giggled every time it happened, but there were so many technical issues on Jeff Bezos' side that it was like they had to take a recess at one point. I think like around like hour 2, like a 10 to 15 minute recess just to fix Jeff Bezos' stream, because there was this weird like double stream happening where he was like, there's a massive echo during one of his streams at one point. At one point he forgot to unmute himself, and he answered for like 10 whole seconds, and they were like, hey man, I think you're muted, and he was like, oh, sorry about that. Like he I think that's why the people are just like, look, we're just having too many issues with Jeff Bezos. We're not even gonna ask him any questions. We're just gonna grill. Oh, I 100%. I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah. But like the idea of like them doing that, them seeing that and going, I guess we'll just ream into Facebook today. It just makes me happy.
But I think overall the importance of the antitrust, even though I don't think any kind of legislation is going to come out of it, unfortunately, I think the reason why it was important is it's putting these digital companies under the microscope and showing that because of the way the world's changing, especially because of COVID-19, is going to be even more like realistic now. Digital spaces are completely owned by a couple parties, meaning that you either get acquired by them, but you can't jump into them because they can manipulate the markets to beat you out. And I think that was the important thing that people need to understand about that hearing on like building a business on a digital scale, like a digital retail, online retail, or trying to build your own kind of like query system, is that they're so big that if you become a threat, they'll either destroy you or acquire you. They're not just going to let you be in the market. And that was evident, like, for those that don't know what like Amazon did to diapers.com, it's scary. Like they purposely
destroyed that guy.
Purposely reduced their margins on the price of diapers to make it so that diapers.com could not exist in the market space, to then acquire diapers.com. And then the argument was, well, because of that, we dropped the price to be competitive in the market. Well, right after the acquisition, they increased the prices again. Right now, there's actually a big problem with individuals getting diapers. And that was the one thing that was brought up because it's a commodity. Like people need it. So that was a big thing there. Facebook acquiring Instagram was very interesting because they were trying to make their own platform. They realized they couldn't compete, so they decided that they're going to acquire Instagram. There was other competitors at the same time. I think Mark Zuckerberg did bring up a good point. It's like Instagram would not have been as big without the acquisition of. You can't just say that Instagram was going to be a competitor to Facebook and all these things automatically. I do agree to a certain extent, but I think that the platforms were uniquely distinct. That Instagram could have survived and done very well. So, and then WhatsApp as well. That's the other. Big
Well, that
issue.
was so direct though with messaging. Like they saw the competitor that they had with messaging, and they were just like, "Oh shit, we need to get him. We need to get him."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then obviously Apple, the App Store, and then Google-wise when it comes to search query systems, the overall engine. There's a lot of issues there. But that being said, as a digital marketer, what you need to understand is one legislation with these companies is going to completely change the way that you're supposed to perceive or go about your activities, right? They changed one policy for Facebook for advertising. Everybody who relies on Facebook advertising to create their value lost it. And I think that goes back to our original point with TikTok and all these other platforms is you should not hedge all your efforts into one single activity. You should diversify it across multiple platforms and make sure that you're always open to the option that might disappear tomorrow.
Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Because if these top 4 companies got broken down, what do you think really would happen?
I think Facebook would probably die. I think IG would probably be okay. Amazon has nothing really to worry about. I think that the other acquisitions that they have are so different from what Amazon is as a main thing that I don't think they get broken up.
I've always loved Amazon, but now it scares me because they're just like they've dipped their feet into anything, everything. Like it feels like, and I just feel like they're gonna like dip into every industry at this point, and then start to like. It's not gonna happen, but I've always feared that they're just gonna be the monopoly of everything at one point.
But here's you have to put into perspective as well, and I think this is where the argument falls up. Like I personally would like to see Amazon get broken apart, but here's the argument that I see what a lot of people say. If Amazon was to get broken up, you wouldn't be able to get your products as fast, right?
Sure.
You wouldn't have as much category, and the price point would be a lot higher because it's taking out the economies of scale and the functions that they're doing for the price point and the subscriptions. But the thing is, that is all at the cost of sustainability and the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think that's where people need to pay attention to because it's great that I can get my package in a day. Do I really need my package in a day?
Yeah. So sure, like if Amazon were to get broken up and we can't do 1 day, 2 day, 3 day shipping for free or like for a subscription price, people are gonna be pissed off about that because that's what we've gotten to now, where like everyone is so used to convenience. But I'm sure at a certain point, if they were to get broken up today and they can't do this anymore, after a certain point, people will get used to it again, or there'll be a different solution or an alternative or something, right?
Yeah, because I mean, the biggest thing with me is like I don't really mind too much that one player can provide a lot of opportunities, like sources for people, right, and all these things. But what really bothers me is that it makes it. It literally takes the value out of capitalism out of it because at this point there's not a fair market. Like because if I'm trying to make a service, anything that is even a niche, and then that finds us valuable to Amazon, they can crush me in 2 seconds with how they can go about it. I mean, it's the same thing with smart home devices. A lot of people don't understand that your Alexas and Google Homes and all these things are at cost to these companies. They are losing money every single time they sell your product
in exchange for your data.
Not for the data, for the ecosystem of your home, because they know IoT is the next thing. They know, so they're trying to build that everybody has an Alexa, so now they can make all the compatible devices and control the entire ecosystem and infrastructure. It's a smart move. You're calculating everything out and then pushing it forward. So,
yeah, it is. It's terrifying. I mean, I know that at this point I've just given my whole body and mind up to Google. My Wi-Fi in my home is Google branded. It's Nest.
Yep.
The cameras in my home are Nest. My security system is Nest. Everything. Chromecast, use that. Everything is. I mean, I use Google Shopping. I have like all these things in there. Like it's to the point now where it's like I have 100%. Like Google's the one company that okay. If I'm going to give my data to one company, if I'm going to pick to not be selective, it's going to be Google.
Yep.
So are you switching to Android?
We've had this conversation before. I love Android, but I love Apple's walled gardens way more than I love Android. Android was really cool. I loved it. I have nothing against Android, but when we had this conversation before, I got an Apple TV, and this was what like I've never in my life ever I'm saying this. I'm taking this to my grave. Will I switch back to Android for this reason? I bought an Apple TV because the Wi-Fi on our smart TV is like giving out. It's like old. So we're like, okay, we're gonna need something else. And Chromecast is cool, but sometimes you don't have your phone, all this stuff, right? So we bought an Apple TV, and I was dreading it on the drive home because I was like, I'm gonna have to sign in to like my Hulu and my Netflix using that dinky little remote with a touchpad on it. And it said like sign in, right? And a little prompt came up on my phone screen and it said, oh, like input login information. I was like, okay, what the hell is that? And I tap on it. It scans my face, which I mean, that's a whole nother bag of worms. Scans my face, and then my password, login, all the information just gets automatically put into my Apple TV, and it logs me in automatically. Like that, to me, is something, and like my watch, that to me is something that is so convenient to the point where it's not even a second guess for me that I would probably never switch to Android, because people give Apple a lot of shit for being like proprietary with other hardware and their software, but that is what happens. Those features are what happens when you don't let anyone else play in your sandbox.
Yeah, build your own ecosystem, everything.
Exactly. And that's amazing. It's fantastic. I love Google with all my heart, but when it comes to, look, if we're picking call like the NBA draft thing, like what hat am I putting on for the phone that I'm picking? I'm putting on the Apple hat right now. It's staying on forever. My data, sure, Google, take it. That's yours.
All right. I mean, we touched on a lot of stuff from TikTok and Microsoft to data privacy, etc. So I think to kind of close out this podcast, I just want to hear each person's like one take on just the existence of like social media and just data, and like just your perception of it, kind of like what the future is, kind of just as a prediction of like where things are going. Because my whole thing is I just think that social media platforms are going to follow more short form content, like TikTok. They're going to have algorithms that benefit content creators as an overarching thing. We're not talking about Quibi today. That was already a like 40-minute rant last time. And from there, I think that for data privacy side, the companies are going to be more strategic and smart, are going to actually figure out a way to give that to the user. I really just do in the future. I just think that that's going to become a thing. I might be too overly optimistic about that because companies want to hold it in, but I really do think that the future of data is going to give it back to the user, and the user is going to be able to control and build their own experiences, because that actually makes the company-wise, not to do as much research and all these things. So you're actively participating because your willingness to do it. So I think that's where the future of social media is going to go. I think that's where the trends are going to go. Advertising, platform development, for everything, and hopefully blockchain can also help and solve those things. But my whole projection for the future is data going back to the user, and the platforms be more quick, fast content, but aligned with what you want. What do you think?
I think that right now, just like with big data and social media in general, it's like the wild, wild west, where like everyone's just rushing to get as much as they can before the gold runs out. And I think what's going to end up happening, like the only thing that I can see is not just breaking down of like these big monopolies, the way that you saw like Standard Oil get split up back in the day, and you got like the Carnegies and all these like the big during the Industrial Revolution. I think truly what's going to have to happen is a few things. One is like a very personal, individual ownership of data. And I think through blockchain and through other things like that is how it's going to come about. So taking ownership of your data, being able to tell people how you're going to do it, how it's going to get dispersed, who's going to get what, how are they going to get that. And then when it comes to like social media, I think it's all going to go short form content. I mean, as much as I love movies, and I think I'll make the distinction now is like movies will forever be movies. They've been movies forever and ever and ever and ever. TV shows will forever be TV shows. It's going to be an hour long, even though there's only like 30 minutes of an actual show, and they put ads in front of it to make money. All these things are still going to be there, but what's going to happen is I think you're going to have these people who are geniuses come about and make this short form content make something out of the short form content that is so good that it's going to make people go, holy crap, like this is what it should have been. This is what it is. I mean,
but better than Quibi did.
Well, miles ahead of what Quibi did. I mean, whatever.
And
We're not gonna talk about it.
just those that want to learn about Quibi, look at our previous podcast.
Yeah, watch our previous one with Andres.
The last half of it, we completely annihilate Quibi, but for a very, very important reason, because I'm sure anybody who's watching this right now has no idea what that company is. So.
Katzenberg, if you are listening, we will make a show on Quibi. 100%. We'll give you shit.
Put our podcast on Quibi. 10-minute podcast episodes.
Put our podcast on Quibi. But here's the thing. Here's how I know that you're not a coward, Katzenberg. We get full reign. We can shit talk you if we want.
But we'll
put
make
us
your
on.
platform better. But we'll make your
We'll
platform
make it better, and we'll bring those two guys that you tried to sue as guests constantly.
The podcast?
Yep.
guys?
Yeah, the podcast guys that they didn't try, they did sue.
Yeah, they sued.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with both of you guys. So this isn't really a prediction, but I guess it kind of is. I actually came across a LinkedIn post today. Somebody I follow, her name is Tiffany Zong. She's the Gen Z Whisperer. Great content, by the way. Definitely recommend.
Is that her header on LinkedIn?
Yeah, and I listened to
some
a podcast she was on too. She's actually
Yeah.
pretty dope.
I just like whenever people say the word whisper, I just can't take that seriously.
Yeah,
I take her seriously. Tiffany, if you're listening, great stuff.
Look, Tiffany, I don't know about you.
Yeah, the great. I'm sure great content, but the word whisper.
Your content's probably fantastic, but my eyes could not roll further back into my head. That's all I want to say about Tiffany.
Please continue. Please continue.
Okay, so what Tiffany does every, I think, week is basically she, with emojis and stuff and very short, basically runs down what happened this week that is interesting to Gen Z. And I love it. I love it. Guys, it's great. Check it out. Today she posted something 3 hours ago, and for context, of course, today is the day that Donald Trump said that he would ban TikTok, and today's the day after Microsoft said that they are in talks to purchase TikTok. So basically, my point is that things are moving very quickly. So already on the Apple App Store, on the top charts, number 1 and number 2 are TikTok competitors, or I guess you can call replacements if TikTok gets banned. So Triller and Byte app are number 1 and 2 on the App Store right now. And I think Byte has been there for a bit, but like things are moving fast and things are changing quickly. So if anything, I'm super excited to see what happens if TikTok gets banned. But I mean, Facebook's coming out with an alternative.
YouTube is too.
We just checked out quickly, like Triller, and
It looks like an absolute clone of TikTok.
kind of, yeah. And Mike Tyson was on it. So,
Yeah, Mike Tyson's on it,
you
which
know,
Good
that's
sponsorship deals that pushes it forward. Too.
I automatically used to go, oh, all right, we gotta make an app on Thriller, okay. No, yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I think I think what's happening right now is you're seeing day trading happening in a social media like field.
Yep.
Where you think of like day trading where you're going completely off of speculation and rumors that feed if you're buying or you're selling, and it's a quick transaction. It's you're in and you're out as quickly as you were.
Yep.
And I think what's happening now is people are saying like, it's gonna be gone. TikTok is no more. It's gonna die. And people going, oh crap! Like, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna get my fix? Like, I have to download something else, which I think is why you see Thriller is number 1 and Byte is number 2, because Triller, excuse me, Triller is an absolute clone. So it's like if I've only known TikTok, Triller, I look at it and I go, oh yeah, I'm used to this. I'm 100% used to this. I know exactly what to do. I know how to navigate this UI. But the minute that it turns out that Microsoft either isn't acquiring it or that Donald Trump isn't going to ban them, they're just going to slowly go boop, 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 boop until it's gone.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I guess let's not like extend this out too long, but I'm also curious to see how the algorithm's going to change for TikTok if Microsoft purchases, right? Because the algorithm is the way it is because of all these crazy points that we've talked about. Yeah. So if that stuff is gonna have to change as well, then TikTok might not be as dominant as it is, and that's, I guess.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how their actual algorithm plays out, because like the way that they coded it is that they can access these data points, but do they actually need those data points to create curated content? I'm not too sure about that, because I don't know how they actually go about their algorithm to showcase content. I'm almost betting that they are using these data sets, like
of course,
location, to actually make it more curated, because that's how they're making it so perfectly curated to you. But I don't know. So I'm interested to see if Microsoft does it two things. One is, are they going to add more security layers to it, which I would hope they do.
probably
And
would.
they would take that seriously because Microsoft does take that seriously. And then number two would be, is it going to be as fun anymore? Like, is the audience grouping going to be the same, or is it going to completely evolve? Or they're trying to push the platform in one way, shape, or form?
Before I say what I'm going to say, please, Microsoft, if you're listening to this, reach out. We'd love to strategize with you. I think it would be the dumbest thing for them to touch the algorithm that TikTok currently has in place. Study the algorithm, understand why it's so successful, and figure out bits and pieces that you can take and put that into Microsoft in some
layer.
way, shape, or form, in a secure layer. But if they touch that algorithm,
It's over.
It's absolutely over, because the algorithm is gold. It's the reason why TikTok is what it is.
The thing is, they're gonna have to though. I mean, I'm hoping that they keep it as intact
That's the crappy part. When anything that Microsoft acquires, they have to make Microsoft in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
because they're better.
Because like I said before, like I was able to install the app and go through the app without logging in, creating an account, or without logging in. I had an account, and eventually the videos would start to look like what they were when I was logged in. And then when I was logged in, after usually what my behavior on this app is, like I get on, I scroll for 5-10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I don't want to log in, but then I see a video I want to save because it's educational, I want to refer back to it later, and that's when I log in. Of course it had my data from what I was looking at 5-10 minutes ago, right? And if they're going to take data seriously from this point on, they're going to require us to log in, because they're, like you were saying, they remove that security layer to allow this stuff to happen. So
I'm curious here, because Apple, in their next update, which I think is iOS 13, they're gonna have a little drop down section that explicitly goes into every single thing that this application you're about to download is gonna take from you. So it's really granular. Like, it'll be like location, name and birthday, like all these, everything.
Subsections.
Subsections of everything they're gonna take, and they make it really easy to see that. I'm wondering if, kind of like how some people say, like, oh, it was in the fine print, like, but if it's gonna allow companies to maybe get even more data greedy, just because I know I'm gonna do it, but how often when you download an app, are you gonna download an app out of like necessity versus curiosity, right? Maybe you need an app, maybe it's the next popular thing. You downloaded it because it's something that everything's kind of happening on, or you need it right then and there. Which, as long as they're putting very explicitly what they're taking from you, they have nothing to worry about. Like, they could just always say, like, look, like, it's right there. Like, is it kind of shitty? Sure. But are we telling you right in front of your, like, we're yelling to you that we're taking this data from you? I'm wondering if more companies that start popping out, more social media companies or more apps, whatever you want to call them, I'm curious if they're going to start getting more data greedy, because it's going to be so explicit, but because they also know that people don't care enough to go into that drop down menu and look. Psychologically.
Yeah. I think this just an hour ago or something, when I was setting up the new Echo Dot, I think when it asked for my location, I got like a mini like thing on the bottom of my screen after I had accepted to use my location only while I'm in the app. There was like a little like toast message at the bottom explaining why this location is being used.
That's smart.
I
I
would
think
have
that's
as
good.
well.
Yeah. So I mean, I think all in all, as long as they're more transparent about how they're using data and without legal jargon and stuff like that, I think it's good. I don't think people are going to look at it. I think people are going to ignore it. But I think companies are realizing that they don't need all this data, and it's if they can alleviate issues, they'll do it in the format, as in, like, that's why the App Store is trying to do this, because it's trying to open more transparency. I just don't think that consumers themselves care too much about those things. So I really just don't think it'll solve those problems. But we talked about a lot of stuff today. I mean, we've gone through everything from TikTok to data privacy to multiple platforms and all that. I mean, to kind of bubble it all down, I mean, at the end of the day, social media has a lot of things that needs to evolve. We're still in a digital landscape. We don't know what's next. Things are always happening. But I hope the kind of main takeaway for those that are listening is be knowledgeable about what is going on, but still be comfortable to just be fine with it, because it's not going to change the way of your life. Nobody's tracking to figure out what you're doing. They might be, but like realistically, they're using that data for another purpose overall. But But just be aware of it. Just know what's going on and be a little bit more conscious about it, because the only way that society changes or these apps change or the companies change is by people actually physically change their behaviors to force the companies to do it. They're not going to do it by themselves. Does anybody have any final last points to close out the podcast?
Nico?
No, I think that's a great place to end it.
Yeah, I think so as well.
All right.
I will say though, because we're still live and everything like that, this is kind of like off that whole topic in general. Are we gonna do over under on live?
Yeah, we'll do over under live, but first let's just close out this podcast and
Yeah.
we'll straight into over under and just do it live. So yeah, it's been a great conversation, and this has been it for this Brew podcast. We'll definitely stay tuned for the next one, and we'd love to hear what your perception of social media and if TikTok is actually going to get banned, and comment on what you think about it below.